have Ray Tokuhisa with us. Ray is a civil engineer with RDG. They are madly in love with the hydrologic cycle, and they earned a BS in civil engineering and an MS in hydraulics and water resources from the University of Iowa. When Ray is not working on hydrology, they can be found keeping their head above water in cyclone territory, as they live in Des Moines, and Des Moines is traditionally Iowa State territory. Ray is a collegiate taekwondo aficionado and also an instructor of taekwondo. Ray also enjoys karaoke, as they are a karaoke DJ. Jockey? What's the right term there?
Karaoke jockey.
Ray is also involved with the Big Brothers Big Sisters program, and they also is super involved with gardening.
Yeah.
And maybe a little bit of interest with Craigslist.
Maybe just a little. Guilty.
All right. Well, Ray, thanks for joining today. Maybe if you want to start with a little backstory of where you grew up, where you were raised, kind of what led you to civil engineering.
Yeah, all right. I was born at a very young age to my parents. So I was born in Indiana. By the time I was 2, they had moved to Kenosha, Wisconsin, which is all over the news lately, and not for good reasons. Really bizarre to see.
I bet.
And so I spent the first 13, 14 years there. My parents split when I was 11, and so somewhere in the interim, my dad started dating my now stepmom. She lives in Iowa City.
Okay.
And so in the whole kerfuffle of like, where are we going? What are we doing with our lives? I ended up with my dad in Iowa City. Did high school, bachelor's, and master's without really leaving the 2-mile radius that is my parents, or my dad and my stepmom.
Sure.
So in high school, I was super involved in theater and everything English, and every high school teacher I had thought I was going to be a high school English teacher.
Okay, okay.
Had the crazy sweater collection and probably was gonna have 17 cats and
That's what I was gonna just ask about cats.
Great. I was gonna write poetry for fun, and I don't know, whatever English teachers get to do. It's not my life, but maybe it could have been. So at some point I realized that there was just this like deep desire to carry on a family tradition, to be in the military. So my first choice of school was actually the Naval Academy at Annapolis, and got pretty far in the process, kind of bombed it's like a 9-person panel interview.
Okay.
And then was just very salty about the whole thing. Like, well, the Navy doesn't want me, so I'm not gonna do ROTC, I'm not gonna do any of these things. And my dad was like, well, what's your backup choice? The University of Iowa. He goes, yes, but what major? And I'm like, And I'm not even kidding. He says, why don't you start in engineering? Because if you don't like it, you can do anything else. Like, he was under this premise that like anything is easier than engineering.
It's a
so
beta test.
Yeah. Okay, fine. I think one of your previous interviewers too had a lot of parental influence, and just sort of like, Dad was always the person tinkering and figuring. He read computer manuals to me as a child.
Okay.
So.
Love it.
Yeah.
Sounds
Ray,
like a bedtime story.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it put me to sleep. Probably still would. My father and I are actually really similar in a lot of respects in that we do all of our like feeling on the outside. We're very interested in like how other people feel about the thing.
Yeah.
But the primary difference is that a lot of his perceptions of things is all physical sensation, extroverted, blah, blah, blah. So if he can measure it, if he can read a manual about it, if he can tinker with it, it comes in as passive data and it gets stored, and then he can like problem solve for later, whereas mine is all intuitive. I'm like, oh yeah, I experience the world, and then all of it goes into this black intuitive box in the back of my head, and then every once in a while, like, the invisible counsel in the back of my brain just throws something. They're like, this is probably the answer. And people are like, how'd you get there? And I'm like, I don't know, just like a gut feeling. And then later I can backtrack and be like, okay, well, I know X, Y, and Z, therefore I can prove it. But it's always like the answer comes up and then I have to prove why it's right.
Okay.
So that's always been kind of this thread throughout like childhood and decision making was things just come in a more intuitive way, and it gets frustrating. But it also means that like the kind of engineer that I end up being is, well,
So a great
kind of
problem
engineer.
solver.
Yeah, sure. I mean, because you're taking in data from everywhere.
Right.
Instead of just, this is the way we've always done it, this is the way we will continue to do it. The position that I find myself in now, there's a lot of collaboration with lots of different disciplines and also different like worldview philosophies. So whether it's a conservation ethic for how we treat the land, or we're going to build a big stadium, and the primary drivers are not conservation of the lands, right?
Right.
To be able to float in between and use the skill sets wherever they're necessary.
Right. Right.
And so I think when I landed on civil engineering, it was because if you do your job right, nobody knows. Right?
Yeah.
Like it's that invisible, like you can help a lot of people without it being this heroic, like, look at me, I've done a thing for you.
Yeah.
And so I've always liked the idea of helping people, and I like the fact that in civil engineering, you might have to defend your math, or you might have to defend your assumptions, but you'll never have to defend your intent.
Right.
Because the intent is always safety, welfare of the public.
Right. Because you take an oath for that.
Yes.
Exactly. Yes.
And that's really like wholesome feeling.
Yeah. So as we've gotten to know each other over the last couple of months, one thing that I really like is that I can tell to your core, like you care about the environment and about the ecological hydraulic cycle of things, and that ties into your work too. So.
I was just telling somebody recently that while there are some threads of that sort of tribal clan feeling of like I want to do things similar to my family, what by and large motivates me ends up being larger than just like the Tokuhisa clan. It ends up becoming more like the community we live in and where we are. And I don't have children, but when I think about the nebulous, like our children's children, and the way we think about sustainability, it's all feelings. Like all of the things that motivate me to do the technical work of like using tables and a calculator and drafting, like it's all comes back to feelings.
Right.
Which I don't know.
So it's a good balance. It's like the feeling base of like that's the ultimate goal, but you take your technical side to be able to implement the feeling stuff.
And what I love about it too is that I think when I was little there was this feeling like a very Western separation of the head and the heart. Like if you have high aptitude in one, you couldn't possibly be good at the other, which is not true at all.
Right. Don't you feel like as you get older, they come more in alignment?
Yeah, they're definitely on a path of convergence, and then if just convincing people from the get-go, like you also don't have to keep them in silos and then converge them later.
Yeah.
Like there can be cross-hemisphere, right?
Right.
Or head-heart, or wherever those things live.
Well, and so many of our clients are based in the heart. They come with a mission. They have like this grandiose idea of what they want to do.
Right.
And if we can connect that to the logical side of it, like it helps to make us less of a commodity and more of, an asset for the projects too. So.
Yeah.
So what did you want to be when you were growing up? What did you think you wanted to be?
So I have two thoughts, and I couldn't decide between them, so I'm gonna give them to you both.
Okay.
Try not to laugh too hard.
Okay.
The first one was, that like, I'm probably not allowed to swear. Very tough female character that is always like Fast and Furious mechanic.
Okay.
Type thing.
Okay.
Where she's just sort of like, I don't know, rough and tumble in the world, and she knows her stuff in and out, and no one can back her into a corner. Like I wanted to be that.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
like it gets played out as like the mechanic on spaceships in Serenity and like whatever else.
Okay.
Like just like the mechanic who knows her stuff.
Yes.
But every time I tried to do something mechanically inclined, like number one, my father was always so good at it, and there was never immediate aptitude in like physical, how do things work, can I make the thing do the thing.
Okay.
And then the more I tried to learn like outside of the safe family bubble too, the way people talk about mechanically oriented things, it always feels like you have to defend what you know and why you know it.
Okay.
Like, defense is not a great place to be learning from.
Right.
Like if you're constantly having to defend
You feel
everything.
inadequate if you don't know it.
Yeah, and if you're starting out on that foot of like, well, so wanted to be the cool mechanic.
Yes.
Also wanted to be a Boy Scout, which at that point in time it was Boy Scouts of America, not just Scouts of America. So as dad hands me the manuals, like, most of the things you know you can figure out from this book. And I did. I learned how to, like, tie knots, make lashings, survive in the wilderness, and, but couldn't be. And I thought it was always, like, a really funny juxtaposition, because my dad was an Eagle Scout, but he went through at a time where people of color were not allowed, still not, like, there was segregation in a lot of places, right?
Okay.
So he's the highest ranking, and the oldest Eagle Scout in his troop. And the Moose Lodge is like having some thing, and they pull the scouts in to present the colors. And it's supposed to be the oldest Eagle Scout that does the thing. And Thomas Tokuhisa, being a very yellow man, was not allowed to, like, watch his son present the colors, which is, like, so bizarre to me, because, like, they let the little Japanese American kid present the color. Well, I mean, he wasn't little at that point; he would have been like 16, 17.
Okay.
But they wouldn't let his father come in and watch. Like, just.
And when was this?
bizarre.
What year was this?
Would have been in the 60s.
1960s.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Like,
It's so crazy.
so it's weird to me to think that, like, dad could be a scout but was not able to have, like, a really strong, like his father wasn't allowed to be there for him in specific ways.
Right.
Whereas, like, there were some avenues that didn't feel or, like, actually weren't available to me as a child, but my dad was always there.
Yeah.
So it was just like a weird flip-flop
Yeah.
of how we came to be where we are. Yeah, so I wanted to be, and I suppose being a Boy Scout is not something that you are when you grow up, but
Yeah. It's a
just
skill
feel
set
that.
transfers.
Yeah,
So.
yeah, it does.
Okay, that's interesting. So then, when you were, like, when did you decide going into civil, like, when did you decide to go civil engineering? Was that when you got to college then?
So I was undecided for as long as you could physically be undecided.
Yeah.
Because
because you said your dad was like, okay.
try engineering, and I was like,
Yeah.
okay, well, it's semester 5, and I'm still trying engineering. Like, I think I'm gonna be an engineer, Dad.
Yeah.
Like, what kind? Like, well, I suppose I should actually pick, silo-specific electives. I think it all ended up coming back to, why are you doing engineering?
Yeah.
My advisor at the time, his wife was also working either in the School of Nursing or psychology, or she was really into Myers-Briggs.
Okay.
And so between the two of them, the whole it was like the whole undergraduate engineering class, he would actually have her come in and administer the Myers-Briggs test, just to see, like, as a personal curiosity, and also, like, it's good that you know who you are before trying to, these are your natural skills.
Sure.
What can you do with them? And it was always really interesting to see, like, Bill described that through the 20 plus years that he had been giving the test, he watched the personality test, or the results come in from a specific subtype of people to, like, slowly diverging into, he's like, I've seen every single personality type come into these courses and take this test. Like, it's slowly becoming more diverse, not from, like, boxes you can check on the census, but more diverse in the way people think and the way they're coming together to learn.
And was the end result, so these were all engineers?
They were all engineers.
With diverse strengths and aptitudes?
Yeah.
Okay.
And it was the moment where I realized that I type as a feeling type person.
Okay.
That I was like, oh, it would be really silly of me to paint a picture of what I think an engineer is supposed to look like, and what I think, why we're supposed to be doing what we do. Why would I paint that picture? Why would I not just make that life for myself?
Right.
But it wasn't until I saw the test in front of me that was like, oh, you're 2.5 years into engineering, and you are a person who feels.
Yeah.
So it would make sense to pick a flavor of engineering that allows you to satisfy those itches, right?
Right. Well, and that's ultimately what makes you successful. If it's something that you're passionate about, something that's true to your core, and if you're implementing that in your career, even if it's a logical side, but still the passion and the feeling side is there, like, that's what's gonna that energy is what's gonna carry you through, right?
My kid brother, he just turned 14.
Okay.
He visited for a week. He was so funny. One, he kept calling me boomer.
I'm My 20, kids call me that too.
I'm 27. Like, I told him he wasn't allowed to say boomer anymore, so he replaced the second M with a B, and he called me boober for the rest of his stay. I was like, come on, kid. But he's like freaking out. He's like, I don't know what I want to do with the rest of my life. You're 14.
Yeah.
But the advice was, you don't have to figure anything out. You just have to get good at one thing.
Yeah.
One category of thing. Because most of the stuff that carries you through life is the ability to be confident, curious, courageous,
Right.
Those are the things. You don't, you can change your mind halfway through, and as long as you can carry over the ability to carry on a conversation, to tell somebody why you think or feel what you feel, or the conclusions that you've drawn, to come together under a banner, or to separate yourself out for specific reasons. Like, all of adulting is just negotiating expectations.
Right.
Which you don't have to figure out your life to figure out how to negotiate expectations. You just have to get good at a thing.
Right.
Whether that's like underwater basket weaving or like balsa wood race cars. Pick a thing, get good at it, and that will take you further than like studiously scripting out, by the time I'm 25, I will have a landscape architecture degree from Iowa State, and by the time I'm 31, I will have my master's in business, and then I will be selling to clients, blah, 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 $5 million projects, and 2.5 kids, and a dog, and a picket fence, and whatever. Like, you can write that script, and it's gonna go to hell in a handbasket.
Right, and then you're not gonna know what to do, right? And I think, like you said, like something to carry you through. So, and really that's just carrying you through to the next thing. Like, who does the exact same thing from the time they're 22 until they're 70? Nobody does. Not many people. And is that fulfilling, or there might be an accountant somewhere. Maybe, perhaps. But like, everyone pivots, everyone evolves, everyone does things differently. I actually had a conversation with a friend this morning, and I was like, I remember being a kid and my mom being like, what do you want to do? And I'm like, I don't know what I want to do when I grow up. And that's like really scary, because like there's too many. She's like, the sky's the limit. I'm like, that's the scary part. Like, I don't want to commit to something, but like, you commit temporarily. You take a path, you go down it, and if it doesn't feel right, then you pivot to something else. And like, that's so liberating, I think, for kids to know that that's an option.
I wish there was a way to like tell kids, the only reason that adults are asking you this question is because they think your answer is funny. Right? Like, if I had known that,
right,
I think I would have been way less terrified about making any decisions, right? Because I'm sure the answers that I gave earlier are, the retrospective ones. But if you would ask me when I was 8, like, the answer was, I don't know, a nurse, an open heart surgeon, an astronaut, a firefighter. I wanted to be in the military. I wanted to do like all of the things. Right. But the one that was like secretly burning in my heart, Fast and Furious.
So, what are you passionate about?
I really like the environment.
Yeah.
So, I think by and large, abstract, intuitive land here, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm really interested in the way things get connected.
Okay.
And I live in my body. I live on the planet. I see resources coming in and out, whether that's like food in, wastewater out, like energy in, productivity and capitalism out.
Right.
Like, you can, if we go back to engineering school, right? You can draw a box around anything and tally in the ins and outs. And I'm always interested in like what's outside of the control volume.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And my puny human mind cannot imagine a control volume bigger than our upper atmosphere.
Okay.
Like, I know there are planets out there, but that just has no bearing on my life right now. Right. Maybe in 40 years it will. So I'm always really interested in the way we build our homes, the way we get rid of our wastewater, the way we treat each other, the way we treat our watersheds, the way we treat our rivers. Like, it's all ends up being connected. Which is very woo-woo. So when people ask, what are you passionate about? I tell them, I'm very passionate about rivers and watersheds and educating young people. I'm really excited about agency and autonomy and confidence, and I really dislike the word authentic. Like, be your authentic, genuine self. If you, from the onset, you say, I'm going to be authentic, have you not already made a definition and decided to stick yourself in it? And isn't that the opposite of authenticity, right?
Right, I have been authentic, yes.
Not the authenticity streak, but the authenticity streak.
Yeah.
Right?
Those are all big words. Autonomy and authentic, yes, all of those are big, important words, I feel like.
I like when people can make informed choices for themselves while still respecting the boundaries of other people.
Yeah. I love that you zoom out and think of it more than just like the engineering problem that you have right here. You're thinking of it as a whole ecosystem and how the whole world, as far as people and environment and everything, just how everything is interconnected and works together. And that's important. Like, not every engineer does that, but they're like, that's the skill set that you bring, and I think that's a very valuable skill set to bring. So.
I I'm sure at some point my supervisor's like, could you just focus on this one thing? But can I? The world is like this big. Yeah, but Ray, could you just delineate this watershed, please?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can do that.
Yeah, okay. We'll set that aside for a second and we will go to this.
Yeah. Right.
Okay, so what would you say is one misunderstood thing about you? What is something that you wish people would understand better or more about you?
I'll embrace the first question. The second one is a little weird to me. And I'll tell you why. Ta-da. So I experience and present gender differently than I think the vast majority, right? For 25 years, people used the pronouns she, her, and hers to describe who I was and what I was doing. And I use they and them because I think they're more accurate, right? The question about accuracy and precision is always funny. I find them to be more accurate to who I am and what I bring to the table.
Authentic, maybe?
Yeah, sure. And right, like when I say we, I just like culturally, like we know that gender and biological sex are different, and from even within gender, there's a difference between like what we expect you to do, how you feel in your own body, like how you present yourself, right? Like even those, like there's subsets there. And then when we're looking at chromosomal sex, like even the splits between them, we see, take any characteristic and you'll see a distribution of like individuals who have specific chromosomes, and if you only knew that about them, you'd expect their body to look like this, like, or this characteristic to look like this, and it doesn't, right? By and large, what we see are a bunch of like multivariate systems that tend to hover around a couple of distributions. And then we say that, oh, there are two loci, that's all there is.
Yep.
Completely forgetting that there are people with like 2 X's and a Y, or an X and 2 Y's, or 3 X's, right? Like, so our fundamental premise of like, well, the chromosomes are only by, like that's not even true. And that's like a lot to unpack to somebody that you never talked to in your life. And so, you know, pronouns is always, I mean, it is what it is. This is I think that it says more about the person using them than it does about me.
Yeah.
Which it took me a long time to get there. I sat there fretting for a really long time, like, if people don't acknowledge the way I feel, then the way I feel isn't valid. Like, all of my feelings aren't real. Like, what a great way to go quickly to a spot where you feel like you don't matter.
And you're not heard, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And then, you know, you get a little older and I don't know, you just learn how to set boundaries and say everything inside of this box really is me, and it's 100% valid and okay to be who I am, and even if the other person doesn't see what I'm bringing to the table, that doesn't mean that I'm not bringing it to the table. So the second part of the question was, what do you wish people would see immediately? And I'm not sure I wish that people immediately were like, ah, yes, they, them, those pronouns are very easy, and now I understand everything about gender. Like, okay, well, I'm sure we'll have like different gender theorists in 20 years that will like turn me on my head, right?
Yeah.
So I enjoy the conversation. Sometimes it's weird, but I think that's all of the things that can't be succinctly described
In a box.
in a box.
Yeah.
In a box.
So I have to say, just personally, like, so, you know, like, there's been some hiccups, right? Like, even, like, introducing you, right? Like, I don't know, or I say the wrong thing. And it's not because I am intending to, it's just because it's different and new for me.
Yeah, it takes
So,
practice.
and I think some of it is just educating people, right? And making them aware and to see you for you, so that it can be done appropriately, so that you feel like you're being seen and heard for who you actually are. And I think sometimes that takes practice. So like sometimes maybe people will refer to you incorrectly, but it's not ill-intentioned, it's just like a lack of knowledge and understanding that will get there. And I think the conversation helps for it to become more normalized, not that that's like the right word, but like more understood.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of it is just, and that's probably so frustrating for you because you probably feel, and I guess you can say to this, but I'm guessing that maybe you feel like you have to explain all the time. And sometimes I'm sure it would be nice just to show up and for people to get it instead of having to explain it all the time.
I feel like it might be the similar, like, it, as with anything that is, like, we can't quickly categorize it, so here's the box, right? Like, I'm sure that my mom would really love if I immediately understood all of the work, like invisible work that it takes just to be a mom, like whatever that box is, right?
Right.
I don't understand that. And it would be so easy to just like take a USB and download it into my head, like, oh my gosh, all of the times where I was like screaming and doing embarrassing things in public or like swearing at church. She actually washed my mouth out with soap, like all of the things that she had to do just to like keep me alive and fed and healthy, right? That I don't remember them all. There's no way I could remember them all, and I don't know. So I think it's a similar, I'm guessing it's a similar kind of frustration, right? Like you just can't know, and so you do your best. And some days I'm like hangry and tired, and my pants are too tight, and I'm bloated, and I'm just not ready to have the pronoun conversation with anybody. I'm just not there. That's not my job today. My job today is delineate the watershed, assign the land use, look up the hydrologic soil groups from the web soil survey. Like that's my job today, and I'm not talking about gender. Like some days are really rough.
Yeah.
Presumably, some days like your 2-year-olds are super rough, and it's hard to be a mom. I think that everyone's life, there's a word for that, right? I think it's German. It's that realization where in your life you are the protagonist and everyone else is just an extra in the movie of Carrie.
Okay.
But each of those extras, in fact, has, you know, the movie of Joe and the movie of Whitney, and they are protagonists in there, right? And you realize that everyone is not just an extra; they're in fact living their own life.
Right. Right.
I think that's the thing that helps me.
Okay.
Whenever things get rough, is like, you know, the guy who keeps calling me young lady, which I think is hilarious.
Yeah.
Like over and over and over again. And then he catches himself and he goes, oh, I'm not supposed to say that. And I'm like, you know what, so-and-so, you really could just keep going. It's okay. And it's just to remember that, like, I think he just refinanced his house or his mortgage, and like he's got 2 kids and they're doing things, and he's got a life.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. And today maybe wasn't his day either. But sometimes don't you want to just show up and like be the engineer? Like not be they, but just be the engineer.
Yeah.
And so like when that has to be a hiccup to get over first before you can be seen for your professional competence, like I could see how that would be difficult.
I think that I'm imagining this, right? This is all fortune telling. But sometimes I struggle with this when I physically show up in a space. Everyone always does the like up, down, like what are you? And that's just like a byproduct of being who I am. But I'm always a little worried that people are gonna be like, well, if you can't even figure out if you're a boy or a girl, how can you figure out whether or not this is going to appropriately treat the 100-year storm? Like,
I don't think people go there though.
I really hope they don't, but there's like some small part of me that's just like terrified. Like,
I could see how you would think that, but I wouldn't think that way, and I would like to think that other people would.
I really hope
that.
so. Yeah. Like I will always give people the benefit of the doubt and assume like once my lizard brain calms down and isn't so scared of just existing, I will always assume that people just they're like they think I put together an awesome outfit. Yeah, I did. Right? That's why they're looking at me sideways.
Yeah.
It's funny that you mentioned though. So my voice hasn't always been this low, and I get he/him all the time over phone, and with the Zoom camera, like it's from here to here.
Yeah.
So even if I'm wearing effeminate, flowy stuff, for the most part, you know, you're looking from here to here. So it's been an interesting transition, specifically because of how much of our life is virtual right now, to watch how people will react differently based on what they know or what they've assumed. So like people that met me 3 years ago, right? Well, I guess that's not really fair because I've been interacting with them for 3 years and the walls are broken down. But it is, I do notice that the space I take up in a conversation is different when it's on the phone and all you can hear is my voice.
Okay.
And I can't really put my finger on it. It just feels different.
Okay.
It's been weird.
Do you feel like the reaction of the person that you're talking to is different on the phone versus in person? Like, do you feel like you get different reactions?
Maybe a little.
Okay.
I've also noticed a lot of, and this is a multivariate problem too, right? So it could be that I just have more confidence as an engineer, Or it could be that with a voice this low that sounds like a man's voice, that I walk in and like, of course I'm the engineer and I know these things and here it is and I'm going to deliver it as is, that people just take it
Okay.
for what it is,
Mhm.
instead of questioning like, well, does she really know anything?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And now that it's just interesting.
Yeah. I love it that, I love the fact that assumptions can't be made. Like, I feel like you mix it up, right? Like, people can't be like, here you are here. It's like, no, you're an engineer here, and like, you can't make these assumptions about me because of, you know, things that you see, I guess. I don't know.
There's
What's a risk that you've had to take to get where you are now?
certainly not posting pictures of me in a bikini. So,
Well
and the world is
played.
probably better
Well
off for it.
played.
My spouse used to be 8 hours away, and now it's 10.
Okay.
We met in grad school.
Okay.
And I was working in a rock lab. I was processing rock samples, and he's a geologist. So
Okay.
he works for the state of Ohio, doing his thing. They offered to pay for his PhD, and only a moron would turn that down. And he's no moron.
Okay. Yes.
So he's far away. And we initially had accepted our jobs straight out of the gates from school, and we're like, oh, well, we'll take a couple of years, we'll figure it out, and then we'll find a place that we can land. And it's been a couple of years, and we still haven't figured out how to land.
Okay.
And it used to be a constant, like, my marriage doesn't look the way it's supposed to. Everyone keeps asking me when I'm going to make grandbabies. Everyone keeps, it's like, and the narrative is really similar there, too. It's annoying on two fronts. One, people say, oh, you're an engineer, you can get a job anywhere. Like, did you know that not everyone is willing to pay to treat the environment ethically and in a way that there will still be environment left for our children to enjoy?
Right.
Like, not everyone's willing to pay for that.
Right. There's not everyone appreciates it, right?
And to find those people and to foment good relationships with them and to figure out, like, what do you need, what resources do we have to work with, where does it make sense to put these things, right? That's a people skill. That's not just a, oh, well, I could find it in Ohio. I could find it in Ohio, but I'm pretty sure all of the engineers in Ohio are really happy that I'm right here, right?
Whatever.
Well, no, because I'll give you a run for your money. But
Right.
this
Okay.
idea
I like
that,
that
like,
too.
you can get a job anywhere. You're an engineer. Like, the kind of engineering, like, I've chosen to be where I am for specific reasons. And to assume that, like, you can just insert engineers wherever you need them is also kind of annoying as an engineer. And then, as, a female-bodied person, why do you think that it is still the narrative where I need to give up everything to go live with my husband because his career is of the utmost importance? Like, we have something, it looks different than yours. When we are together, it's like nerdy and amazing, and it's like Malbec cheese, really good music, finding some tiny little project to work on together, and laughing at whatever we can find that is laughable in the moment. Risky in the sense that you're not going to find a YouTube video for how to do that.
Right. Yeah.
Right? Like,
So, like,
how to maintain a marriage over 10 hours when in the middle of a pandemic with seemingly divergent career paths and ultimately, like, different, right? It's not the 2.5 kids and the... Like, we'll probably get a fur baby. There's probably going to be a dog somewhere.
Right. Okay.
But,
I can see how that's a risk. Yeah, for sure.
It's risky to constantly have that back door open a little.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because I perceive that other people's marriages are so, like, tightly knit and no one can poke at it, right? Like, no person would come up and say, would question the structure of a normal looking marriage. Like, oh, that's theirs, I'm not going to touch it, it's none of my business. But as soon as you say, oh, I'm doing a weird thing, my marriage looks different, people, like, they ask questions and they poke and they're like, well, why aren't you doing this? Or like, well, it seems like you could just get a job in Ohio. And I'm like,
yeah.
It's like this open door where I wish it wasn't an open door.
Yeah.
I'm also really happy where I'm at.
Along with many things, I see you as a very brave person, so
Thanks, Carrie.
taking lots of risks, and I love it. So, okay, so who inspires you?
I went through, besides Bikini Lady, I am so inspired, she just went for it. I am super inspired by my little sister.
Okay.
So I feel like there's like a little bit of black sheep of the black sheep going on, right? Because within the broad extended family, my core family, just they lean politically one way, and we have specific whatevers. And within that, my sister actually aligns more with the outside of the donut.
Okay.
Right?
As far as your family, like extended family, or just outside of the donut as like not the same beliefs as like your immediate family?
Yeah, just not the same beliefs as immediate family.
Okay.
So we're all blessed, fortunate enough to have pursued post-secondary educations, right? Like we've all got degrees or certificates of some sort. But she really struggled for a long time. This was mean. Do I say it? She wanted to do criminal justice. She wanted to work with canine units. She wanted to work with dogs. She really loves animals, and she has a really good sense for what's right and what's wrong.
Okay.
And on paper, it looked like, oh, criminal justice, that makes sense. And then it got into all of the crap that you have to deal with as an officer, and people just like, she wasn't about that. She's like, why can't you just follow the rules to follow the rules?
Yeah.
And it turns out that being in law enforcement, not only do you have to have, among all of the other things that you have to have, right, like a sense of right and wrong, but also the patience with how to deal with this in like an appropriate manner.
Right.
Which is currently under intense scrutiny, right? Like how do, like, we've got people up in arms telling people how to do their jobs.
Right.
With insanely good reason, very valid reason, but there's just there's a magnifying glass over them right now. And so I think a lot of things, she went from criminal justice to culinary arts.
Okay.
And the mean thing was like, Rebecca, are you just going through the list in alphabetical order, like criminal justice, culinary arts?
Next up, dentist.
Next up, exactly! That's exactly what I said. I was like, you're gonna be a dentist next. And after that is entomology, if you'd like to study bugs.
Yes.
But so she went from criminal justice to culinary arts. We joked, are you gonna be a dentist next? Because you're going down the list. And she stuck with culinary arts. She now makes the cutest pastries. She's engaged to just like straight up farm boy. Like I cannot make this up. His name is John. She's engaged to Farmer John, which is not the future any of us envisioned for her. Like, well, shame on us for envisioning things for somebody that is her own human being. Like, she's just found a way to say, no, this is what I want. It looks way different than what you thought I was gonna have. And she said, I'm interested in baking, but right now I've got, health concerns and what have you. Like, she's taken a job that's not culinary stuff. She's made that decision for herself to say, right now I need insurance, I need stable income. I'm going to continue being like entrepreneurial by myself, not like with a bakery, but like doing wedding cakes and event stuff for friends. So she's still scratching that culinary itch and being able to create beautiful things for people and connect with them and like, give them a delicious, like it's the icing on the cake, right?
Right.
But to still balance that with what she needs right now, I just so wish that I had better understood those boundaries for myself when I was her age. So she's 5 years my junior, and like far exceeds me in terms of being able to say, this is who I am, this is what I know I need, and to just, like, it's not a flashy, like, bells and whistles, like she got there, and it fits, right?
And it's her path, and she's happy by it, right?
It's her path.
That's super young. It took me till almost 40 to get there, so.
I'm sure it'll be different in 10 years, but to just see how many weird things she's managed to reconcile. Like, there's just a lot at play, and to find any path in the current conditions,
I love
she's
that.
also loving and caring, like all the time, and a little goofy. Right? She has to be comfortable with you to see it, but to constantly move forward in a respectful way where, like, I've never felt like she's laughed at me, but I've never felt like an idiot around her. I adore that about her. That she can find her own and still respect people for where they are. She's awesome.
I love that. That's awesome. Well, thank you, Ray, for being here today. I have to say, one of my favorite things about you is the fact that you are brilliant and you have these big, huge ideas, but you kind of float under the radar a little bit. So you like holding back a little bit, kind of quiet. And then at the right moment, you articulate these amazing things. And it's like, so I feel like you kind of hold back a little bit, and then like there's a pause, and you're like, this is what I think. And it's like beautifully articulated. It's almost artistic in the articulation of it. And it's brilliant and like super smart and super thoughtful. And it's like, I don't know, like the way you tie it all together, it's pretty much amazing. So I can tell you are a deep thinker and yeah, very, very smart.
They say still waters run deep.
Whatever. So I like the time with water there though. So anyway, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.